Our world needs a sustainable economy, but the transformation to being sustainable is complex. Yet leaders that move quickly can see massive opportunities before them. I'm Joel McCower. Join me as I talk to the trailblazers who are showing us all how ESG has moved from responsibility to opportunity. I'm here with Emily Jackson Kessler, Senior Vice President for Sustainability at The Economist. Emily, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Joe.
So The Economist is a media, events, and research company, and people don't necessarily associate sustainability with that sector. Talk a little bit about what you do at The Economist.
My role focuses on environmental sustainability at The Economist, and that is how we manage, measure, and mitigate our impacts on the environment.
Well, what are the impacts of a media, events, and research company on the environment?
Well, a large part of what we do is reaching out to our readers in the formats that they want to read our journalism. A large part of our impact is through the printed product, so the Economist newspaper, but it goes across our whole organization. So when we measure the impacts of the group, we're looking at not just the impact of our offices and where we do our business, our scopes 1 and 2 emissions, but we look at scope 3, we look at our entire value chain, and that's how we produce our products, how we bring them to market, how we take them to the customer, and what happens at end of life. So that is the environmental impact. And we look not only at carbon emissions, but we look at plastic, so our impacts in terms of plastic waste, our plastic footprint, and also understanding the life cycle of the Economist newspaper itself. A large portion of our footprint is down to paper production. Yeah. So the energy and water that is required to produce paper. So that makes up quite a large portion of our footprint.
Yeah, but compared to a lot of companies, even of your size, I would imagine that the environmental footprint is relatively small compared to, as you talked about, the impact, the positive impact of the editorial coverage on environmental issues. How do you view that at The Economist in terms of is there a mission, is there a goal, is there an editorial philosophy around sustainability?
Well, that's absolutely right. Our footprint is not as large as a fossil fuel company, is a relatively small footprint overall. But we have a very significant impacts in terms of our coverage, in terms of our content. And people regard the Economist Group as a global beacon of progress. Our brand is trusted by millions for independent coverage, for analysis, for opinion. And what we do is write about climate. We cover the issue of climate because the progress that The Economist writes about is affected. It's going to be hugely impacted by climate, and it's the defining issue of our age. So what we're seeing today with extreme weather events is impacting food. It's leading to water shortages. So it's become clear that a more sustainable model of development is required. And our role at The Economist is to champion progress in everything we do. And that means that we address environmental and social challenges through our content, but also by looking at our own environmental impact. Because, of course, if we write about the environmental impacts and challenges, we need to also reflect that in the way that we are responsible stewards of our own environmental impact at the same time.
Yeah, I would imagine that you have to walk your talk, as we all do. And also on the event side, you do quite a number of events around the world. I imagine those have some environmental impact that you need to address. There seems to be a movement to make more and more events zero waste, carbon neutral, and other things. What are you working on in that regard?
So we have signed up to the Net Zero Events Pledge, which is a pledge amongst a number of events organizations and exhibition and trade fair organizations to reduce the impact of events to net zero within the timeframe of the Paris Agreement. And you're absolutely right, that touches on things like waste, but also looks at travel, delivered travel to events, the use of venues. So when we are selecting venues for our sustainability portfolio or any type of event that we're running, we look very carefully at venue selection, at the type of organizations that we're working with to deliver our events. We inform our delegates about how to get to our events in the most environmentally friendly way. And we also offer virtual events. So we also have that ability to deliver events in a way that has a lower impact on the environment as well.
So do you only do that for sustainability events, or does that sort of leak over into all of your The Economist events? It seems like something that's too important just to leave to the sustainability ones.
No, it's for all of our events. So that commitment is for all of the events that we're running as an organization.
Yeah. How would you characterize, going back to the editorial coverage of The Economist, how would you characterize that your coverage of sustainability has changed over just the past 2 or 3 years?
I think our coverage, so we've been very vocal about the impacts of climate change since the late 80s. And it was the climate issue that we published in late 2019 that really was a starting point for us building our own environmental sustainability strategy. And I would say it was also a change from the way we were writing about climate change as The Economist. What was very unique about that issue is that we wrote about climate in every article that appeared in that particular issue, including in the obituary, where we wrote about a glacier in Iceland that had been declared dead. And that was really to show that climate impacts everything that we write about. So it's not just a weather issue. It's an economic issue. It's a political issue. It's a human rights issue. And that was the very unique way that we covered that. And since then, we have talked about climate regularly. It's covered in web and any format that our readers are wanting to consume that content. One recent edition that we brought out was particularly grim. It had an image of the penguins bobbing on rising tides, and it was giving a very grim picture of what a 3-degree world will look like. And that's a world where we are suffering from environmental degradation, pollution, resource scarcity, poverty, and a huge number of impacts through climate change. So the hope is that through our journalism, that we are able to reach and leverage our audience to bridge the gap between where we are today and really what needs to be done to mitigate catastrophic climate change.
So, Emily, what would it take to go further, faster in your sustainability journey?
So, one, I think innovation is absolutely key, and that's innovation across our value chain, across our supply chain. Because in my view, we can't innovate in isolation. We don't exist as an organization in absolute isolation. And by coming together with others in our value chain, we can address the challenges of our time with fresh perspectives, with different ideas. And we are very keen as the Economist Group at driving those types of collaborations, and are always excited to have conversations with other companies about how we can address the environmental challenges of our time. So I think innovation and working in partnerships and taking a systemic view of our role of our organization is absolutely key. And the second is looking at a regulation, because we know at the end of the day that, as you mentioned earlier on, that our actions alone are not going to save the planet. We're taking voluntary action. But what can we do also across our supply chain to drive more action from other businesses so that we're working collectively towards the same goal? And there, I think improved regulation for companies is key. So more scrutiny of targets, more scrutiny of net zero targets. And The Economist also writes regularly about carbon taxes, that meaningful carbon taxes can also have a huge impact in diverting investment into decarbonizing technologies.
Yeah, and as the Economist name would imply, there's also about the finance piece of this and how do we finance this massive, unprecedented transition. I would imagine that's also part of your scope.
Yes, absolutely. So that's where we're also looking at exciting and interesting technologies that can help us on that decarbonization journey. And we have been looking at investments that can support us there. We invest in direct air capture technology. These are very new technologies that are not yet scaled up to remove a huge amount of carbon at the moment, but they are promising. And I think that's where we're looking for these types of innovations that can make a significant difference.
Of course, sustainability is about more than just the environmental piece, although I know that's your focus at the environment. But where does the S come in for the Economist? What about the social side of all this?
Yeah, so social is an area where we are very active, and particularly in the area of education. So the Economist Educational Foundation was founded 8 years ago to educate school-aged children in media literacy and critical thinking skills for the 9 to 10, 11-year-olds. And that is key. So how are kids interpreting the news today? How do they understand the world around them? And how can we put them in a position that they can interpret that and support the climate journey too? We're also tapping into our very talented tech team in Gurgaon and in Birmingham to educate women. So we have been engaged in a program called Code First Girls, where our teams have been teaching women how to code in both of those countries. So both of them are great examples of how we're using education to have a social impact.
I love the idea of the obituary for the glacier. Among other things, it shows that glaciers are living things, just like humans and critters. What's driving this at The Economist?
Well, I think it comes back to the point that I was making at the beginning. So the Economist and the group, and that's across all of our businesses, the content that we write across all of our business, we stand for progress, and this progress is fundamentally challenged by climate change. If we keep going in the direction we're going today, we are facing the catastrophic impacts of climate change, and we will not be able to do business in the way that we're doing it today. So that is why it is key that we understand the impacts on our business and how we take action against that as business leaders or as individuals. And I think that's something that we can all do in every way, whether that's in our own homes and decisions we're taking there, to what role can we play in our own businesses and how can we have an impact there. That is how we're reaching both our readers, but also those that engage with Economist Impact and our events or Economist Intelligence and Economist Education, that we leaders of today and tomorrow are learning about the impacts of climate change and can take action on that front.
So what's the opportunity here for The Economist? And I don't mean, profiting off the world's demise. I mean, you're a business, a venerable business, been around for decades or maybe a century or more. How do you see this contributing to your business goals?
Well, I think there is a huge opportunity for us. I mean, one, we have built up a substantial portfolio of sustainability content. We write about policy, we cover food sustainability issues. So we cover sustainability through all of our businesses and can advise and support the audiences that we reach out to. But I think the big opportunity for us is also digital transformation. So I think if we had this conversation before COVID, the opportunity would be how can we transform our business digitally to take advantage of or to drive our journalism and products across the group. But in reality, COVID-19 has changed our world overnight and accelerated our digital transformation. So at our fingertips, we already have products across the group to reach audiences with content that can help them make decisions about the world they're living in and the challenges they're facing. And that's from the kind of mind-stretching analysis of The Economist, whether you consume it in podcasts or newsletters, on the web, or on the apps. The Economist Education, which is a completely online learning platform, and Economist Impact, which is a convening, has the convening power to bring together influential target audiences on innovative digital platforms and reach them that way. So that is the big opportunity for us. It's digital transformation and moving forward.
And how about for you, Emily? What gets you up in the morning?
It's a good question. I mean, what my hope, and this is why I get up in the morning, is that through trusted, independent coverage and using the voice and leverage of an organization like the Economist Group, we can make a difference, that we can bridge the gap between where we are today and what needs to happen, so that we're able to stimulate debate, that we can drive collaboration, drive innovation. I think those are the things that get me up, because I feel that the Economist Group has a very strong voice, a global reach, and is able to stimulate and drive forward that debate.
So when you and I talk in 2 or 3 years, let's say 2025, what's the story you hope to be able to tell about The Economist, sustainability, and ESG?
So on the one hand, I hope that we will be able to say that we are consistently reducing our impacts on the environment, and that's through our carbon emissions, reducing our footprint, and are on a clear journey towards net zero. I mean, that's at our organizational level. But on another level, it's about also influencing our audiences. So being able to see that we have made a change, that we have been able to, drive action amongst our audiences and readers.
Yeah, there's a lot to do, and I'm so glad that you and The Economist are on the case. Emily, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me, Joe.